welcome to Preemie Chats, a place for parents and healthcare professionals to gather, share stories, and learn from each other. I'm your host today, Jenna Morton. I'm the preemie mom of 32-week twin boys who are now 10 years old. Preemie Chats is the creation of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation, also known as CPBF. The foundation is a parent-led charity that helps families during and after their NICU time through education, support, and advocacy. You can take some time to visit the website. You can see it there, canadianpreemies.org. You will find all kinds of resources, links to our previous Preemie Chats, our podcast, and most importantly, you will be connected with a community of parents and professionals who are working together to help our children thrive. Our comment section is open, so please let us know where you're joining from today and share your thoughts in the comments as we hear from our guests. Today we have two guests who are joining us. Both are healthcare professionals and both have published works inspired by their work with preemies. Maria Chifa is a psychologist and mother. She published Prematurity and Parenthood, Poetry from Within the NICU, a book of poems inspired by her months spent in the hospital with her 28-week twin girls. We will also be joined today by Dr. Hana Alazen. Dr. Alazen is a pediatric rehabilitation doctor at CHEO in Ottawa. Her children's picture book, You Are Brave, features Allie and her dog Zach. Allie shows us that feeling nervous about trying something new is actually an act of bravery. We will hear from both the authors today about their journeys in writing, in parenting, and healthcare. Each of them will share about their work, and they will take your questions in the comments as well. To begin today, I would like to introduce Dr. Hana Alazen, who is an assistant professor at the University of Ottawa, as well as a practicing pediatric rehabilitation doctor at CHEO and the Ottawa Hospital Rehabilitation Centre. She drew on her personal experience and her interactions with her patients to write You Are Brave, which was published in September. Welcome to Preemie Chats.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to get to share a little bit about the book that I wrote. Okay, so I just want to start and make sure everyone can see can you see my first slide? There you go. Okay. And have to excuse, this is the cool background that came with this lovely platform. So I hope you can see me nice and clearly. So thank you so much, Jenna, for having me and for the lovely introduction. I feel I probably don't have to elaborate then too much with this first slide. So as Jenna mentioned, my name is Dr. Alazen. I'm a peds rehab doc at CHEO in the nation's capital here in Ottawa. I primarily work with children that have physical or mobility difficulties. But this book, You Are Brave, is really for children. We can start with even babies, children, and even adults of all abilities. And it really speaks to finding the courage to try something new, regardless of your abilities. So although I do work primarily with individuals with physical disabilities, I really did want to make sure that they were well represented in this book so that they can see themselves as they flip through the pages and get some ideas of some new things that they can try. And it happens that all the proceeds for this book will be going back to our patients at CHEO through the CHEO Foundation and really funding some fun activities, recreational activities as well, so they can go ahead and try those new activities. So that's just a bit of the background of me and a little bit, I'm going to get into a little bit more of the journey to getting to this book. So I'll go down to the next slide here. So a little bit about my journey. Oh, sorry, in the PowerPoint presentation, this was going to come up one at a time, but it's all there for you guys to see. This is my journey from start to end, writing the book. So you see little Dr. Alazen there. I maybe was 3 or 4 years old at the time. And the reason why I'm putting all these pictures up here is, you know, we have many, I once heard we have many chapters in our lives, but it's not really about how many chapters we have. It's really about the lessons that you take from all of them. So the lessons I think that I take from my childhood is to definitely dream big. So clearly I always wanted to work in the medical field and work with little ones. I also got to attend here in Ottawa. I'm actually from Ottawa, born and raised. And I actually got to attend a school that incorporates and really integrates children of all abilities. And my best friend sitting next to me had cerebral palsy, the most common form of childhood disability, and I really had no idea. So a lesson I learned from that chapter was that childhood innocence is a gift. And sometimes differences, especially with young ones, are not necessarily seen as differences, but actually something that's very special. And so I remember looking over to my friend Jonathan thinking, you're so lucky you get a nice adapted desk and a computer, and I want to sit next to you. And I think that really sparked my interest to work in this field. I went on to do my master's I went and studied kinesiology in my undergrad and went on to do my master's at Queen's in physiotherapy. That was the initial love, as I really did want to work with children with mobility impairments. And I think the lesson I learned from Queen's was they have pretty scary homecomings, homecoming celebrations. But all joking aside, I had the opportunities to work with the Children's Treatment Center at Hotel Dieu at Queen's, and maybe some of you have heard of the Children's Treatment Center in Peterborough, which is the 5 Children's County Center. And I got a chance to really see how we could help children of all, both physical, cognitive, and intellectual conditions, and really sparked my love for this field. I wasn't done with school, so went on to medical school, as that was, I think, my initial love. And I think the lesson I learned from that chapter in my life was to, even though accepting no at some points in your life is important. So I didn't get in my first few times I tried into medical school, but persistence and having a little bit of spicy persistence is a good thing and can lead you to your goals. So I'm happy that I still went for that dream, as it's led me to my passion, my daily passion that I get to do now. I got a chance to do my pediatric residency and my fellowship in pediatric rehabilitation at CHEO. And a big chapter I learned during my training is, getting a chance to work in some of these mid-level, kind of mid-size hospitals, as it's a wonderful Goldilocks middle ground. You get to have groundbreaking research and opportunities to be involved in really cool stuff, but you also get to know everybody walking through the halls, from the housekeeping staff, from the folks at the coffee shop, right to the CEO. Everybody knows everybody by first name, and it's a pretty special place if you've ever been there to be. The picture next to the CHEO picture are my kiddos. I have a 2 and a 7-year-old right now. And one thing that my mentor, Dr. Anna McCormick, another pediatric rehab doc at CHEO, has always taught me is we're going to be faced with lots of challenges, as many of you have already faced. And she just taught me there's going to be lots of balls in your court, and lots of balls that you're trying to juggle. And you probably heard this one before, but some of them are glass, and those are the ones that you have to be careful. You can let the other ones drop, they'll bounce, but obviously the glass balls are things you have to focus on. So when life gets crazy, I make sure that these 2 glass balls of mine are always kept afloat and on my priority. Down below, you're going to see lots of cool technology that we use in rehabilitation, and that is one of my passions in my work. Some of the research that I do at CHEO is really focused on finding technology and how it can help my patients in their daily lives. And the real lesson I'm learning now with there is a lot of people sometimes are hesitant, find technology scary, find technology might replace certain therapies, and that scares some of my colleagues. But really not to be too scared, because it's going to really be it already is the new wave of the future, and there's lots of opportunities we still haven't tapped into. So technology is a fun part of our everyday life in our world in pediatric rehab. And then finally, my book writing endeavor. This is my first book. I really did want to write something where our patients could feel represented. And this book I wrote with my late father during his time in hospice. And I really thank him for the push, for helping me find the courage to actually go for this bucket list item that I wanted to get done for our patient. So moving on. So these are the some of the medical conditions that I get to see, that I get to treat. Cerebral palsy being the most common, as it is the most common form of physical disability in childhood. I also get to treat individuals that have neuromuscular conditions, some congenital that some babies in the NICU might be that we might get to treat right from the NICU. So congenital myopathies, myotonic dystrophies. I also work with individuals with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, as well as Charcot-Marie-Tooth, spina bifida, brain injury, and spinal cord injury. I wanted to just put this one slide here because, once again, CP, cerebral palsy, is the most common cause of childhood disability. And I want to perhaps, for those that may not know what CP is, put the definition out there because this is a big population that I had in mind when I was writing this book. And essentially, cerebral palsy, it's a group of a non-progressive condition. Although physically their limitations may progress as they get bigger, the actual neurological injury that they would have had during the developing fetal or infant period is non-progressive. It's a static injury. So it happened either in utero or during birth or shortly afterwards, and is static at that point and non-progressive. You could have an injury that you might have been picked up on in utero or shortly after birth, a neurological injury, but until it actually impacts your physical function or development of movement, does it qualify for this diagnosis of CP? So CP is very much so a clinical diagnosis, although we do MRIs and sometimes genetic testing to get the etiology, the cause of the diagnosis for the families. At the end of the day, if there is a movement limitation secondary to a neurological incident that happened in that developing infant or developing fetal or infant period, then that qualifies for this diagnosis. It can often be accompanied by some other conditions, including epilepsy, communication limitations, as well as other musculoskeletal issues. And CP is a very diverse presentation. You can have level 1, so gross motor classification system. That's a very long word to say. How do you move? So our level 1 patients may be walking down the street and no one knows that they have CP, but they may have a few gross motor limitations going upstairs or on uneven ground, up until level 5, where they do need assistance being pushed in a wheelchair or a standing device. And I like to put this slide out here because I do think this really pushed me to write the book. So this is the new World Health Organization International Classification for Function, lots of LMNOPs, lots of letters, all to say that this was how medical professionals are often trained to ask families about their physical function. So we used to be trained to really look at just body structure and function. What's the limitation in activity and participation? But this didn't always fit in the pediatric population. So our colleagues in Hamilton at CanChild came up with this wonderful F-words framework, very specific to the pediatric population. And we're encouraged to ask some of these questions when we meet with our patients. What do you do for physical fitness? Are there any concerns or limitations in your function of your day-to-day life? What are things that you can and cannot do? Do you have opportunities to do things with your friends, or are there anything prohibiting you from participating with your friends, as well as your family? And do you do things for fun? And what are some of those things that you like to do for fun? And what are some of your hopes and dreams for the future? And I'd ask these questions. I actually have it in my template, the F. And often a lot of my patients would tell me, well, Dr. Alazen, or the families would say, you know what, we'd like to try swimming, we'd like to try wheelchair basketball, but we haven't done it yet. I'd say, well, is it the fact that you don't know about what's out there in the community? And that wasn't often the case. A lot of the time, patients and families were a little bit hesitant. And I really wanted to get down to the source of where this hesitancy came from. So we wrote this book, and it's called You Are Brave. And as you heard, it's about Allie and her dog, Zach. And it had to be a Yorkie because we had a Yorkie that passed away right before actually my father passed away. So we made sure Yorkie was in the book. And, it starts with the teacher asking Allie, what are some of the things that she likes to do for fun? And she liked to read. She knew that much. But apart from that, she was stumped. And she decided it was time to try something new. And so the book takes you through new activities that they can try, that she could try, that her classmates were doing in her community. So this was the community outdoor pool where Allie saw Ramsey using an adapted flotation device. But I don't know if it's super clear on this picture, but in the picture book, whenever she's scared, her heart flutters like a butterfly. And we're really trying to get to maybe some of those inner feelings that my patients might be feeling, some of the anxious feelings that they may be feeling about trying something new. And she says, you know what, that swimming's not for me. And then she goes on to see her friends playing basketball. And you're seeing an adapted sports wheelchair right there. And, saying, they asked her to come join her. And once again, she has that fluttering feeling. And she said, no, not today. And then she saw other classmates doing some art in the park, and you're seeing some modified art using a modified way to use your paintbrush. But she also had that fluttering feeling with that suggestion. She goes on back to the library where she feels comfortable, and there happens to be a fire there. She's very courageous, closes the door, calls for help, and saves the day and saves that library. And she really does find that even though she might have had that fluttery feeling when trying something that was very scary, like calling for help, but she found the courage to do it, saved the day, and that helped her find the courage to try other things as well. So the next day she tries all the adapted sports and art, and it hopefully does leave our readers with a bit of a good feeling at the end and some inspiration and motivation. But really at the end of the book, there are some questions that parents are encouraged to discuss with their children in terms of that fluttery feeling. Do you ever have it when you try something new, when you're scared, when you're excited? Can you draw it? So we're really trying to get to the bottom of finding those feelings and the courage to address them. So that's about it for the book. I didn't want to take too much time, and I wanted to leave some time for any questions. You can find the book online in both at Indigo and Amazon. It's also located in the gift shop at CHEO if you're local here to Ottawa. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to contact me. I realize I don't have my contact information out there, but perhaps I'll put it in the comments for everybody. And if you have any other questions and I can't see them, I'm going to try my best to see them, then please feel free to email me. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions right now in the comments, but we did put the link directly to Chapters Indigo for your book there in the comments for people who are looking for easy access.
Chapters Indigo
for your book there in the comments for people who are looking for. Great. And yes, hopefully if anyone has questions, they can reach out to you or ask in the comments, and you can come back around to answer those. All right, I'm now going to invite our second guest of the day to join us, and that is Maria Chifa, who, as I mentioned, has written a book of poetry called Poetry from Within the NICU, sharing some stories about her time there with her family and her girls. And just give me one moment here to find all the right buttons. We'll get things underway with Maria. Here we are, and I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulty. There we are. Hi, Maria.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing some stories about your journey, both as a healthcare worker and as a parent of preemies.
Thank you so much for having me here.
And I'm going to bring your presentation up onto the screen now for you. There we go.
Thank you so much. I would like to congratulate Dr. Alazen for such an interesting and powerful presentation. Before I start to talk about my book, I would like to give an overview to our followers about our story so they understand where is it all coming from. Our twin daughters were born prematurely at 28 weeks. This is Victoria, top left, and Aurora below her. After Victoria lost the amniotic fluid at 19 weeks, that is not even half of the pregnancy. So you can imagine that the outcomes weren't very positive expected. But they are very strong girls and they made it to 28 weeks. The first 8 months of their lives, more exactly 233 days, they spent only in NICU and were rehospitalized countless times with viruses and lots of other little things to a pediatric ward. So what we lived was very traumatic and stretched our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. But at the same time, it inspired me to write the poetry from within the NICU. I struggled a lot while on the unit with acknowledging and dealing with the roller coaster of emotions that the NICU brought. And I know that many of other families do. Therefore, the message of this book for them is you are not alone. So it really aims to inspire and empower them and just help them understand that they have all the support that they require to go through this journey. At the same time, the book is very relevant to NICU staff because it gives an insight of the emotions that the NICU families feel. Some of the themes that I explore during in the book are the complex needs that our girls faced, such as chronic lung disease. Aurora was on breathing failure. Victoria was very stuck because of her breathing due to a lack of growth during the pregnancy. Another example would be ROP, retinopathy of prematurity, and many other things that they struggled in the NICU. I also explored the trauma, the grief, and the blame that I experienced. And that is for not being able to be by their side all the time and for not being able to provide the care I wanted to provide. And many other situations from our tumultuous hospitalization in the NICU, but also post-discharge at home. But most importantly, I shed light on post-traumatic growth that we as a family managed to do. And that is mainly to send some hope out there to other NICU families. I would like to read you a poem, and while I do that, I would kindly ask our followers to let comments, messages of the things that the poem inspires to them. What's in a name? As young parents, we had a brilliant idea. To continue the tradition, we named our first daughter Maria. Like her mother and her 2 grandmothers, she proudly wears her name and never wished for another. With kindness out of this world, Maria never ever falls short of good words to lift up everyone and always spreads love and fun. When twin 1 lost the amniotic and doctor said she wouldn't make it, we believed that if she survives, that will be her first victory in life. Therefore, she chose her name herself, as onto life headstrongly she held. Victoria, our amazing fighter, each day you make us brighter. But what would be life without light? We thought together on how to decide, how to write the destiny of another sweet girl. We named her Aurora, our youngest pearl. Darling, you are as precious as the magical borealis, an amazement and admiration for all of us. And with your beauty and your bloom, you'll always light up every single room. As you can see, one can learn so many things about someone just from their name. For instance, in this case, I share pieces of our culture, which represents our identity as well. I share some values that we hold dear, the rationale behind choosing what we chose, behind our choices, the seed that we wanted to plant in our children, the joy that we feel whenever we call their names, but most of all, the meaning, which makes each name unique for each family. It is not accidentally that I chose to read this poem to you today, but rather with the clear intention to highlight the importance of NICU staff asking families about their baby's name. For us, it wasn't the same when someone called our daughters Twin A, Twin B, Twin 1, Twin 2, as opposed to their names Aurora and Victoria. So you can imagine the difference. And you might think, why is this important? Well, because firstly, it helps build up rapport, which is so important for any conversations, you feel connected. Imagine if you see a doctor for the first time in your life and is going to tell you that your baby might eventually die. This might be very unpleasant for both parts. But if you build up a bit of rapport, if you ask about baby's name, everything gets easier. Secondly, it helps create a safe space for parents so they can ask questions, they can feel comfortable to say what they think, to make suggestions for their baby's care, and so on. And thirdly, it shows that the staff really cares about that baby, that it is not just, something superficial. And what I would like to draw attention here is that all these little things and such a small gesture, like asking about baby's name, set up the stage for personalized communication and support structure tailored for each person's characteristics, preferences, and values. And also it helps consolidate this partnership between NICU staff and NICU families, which is so important, crucial for a baby's development and progress. It is not me saying this only, not only me, but there is a whole body of research suggesting the same thing, and I attached some of the references here. You may have noticed that my talk resonates around FI Care, Family Integrated Principles, which promote this culture of partnership between families and staff. And that this is why I believe that my book is so relevant to NICU families, NICU staff, but also to general population who might have to experience the NICU dimensions at some point of their lives. However, our story, what we lived, represents only a few of the many angles that NICU comprises. Therefore, I would like to outline the work of my friends' authors. For instance, Emma Ines, In Their Hands, presents her story of a full-term baby in the NICU, which is also possible, because sometimes we think that whenever we hear NICU, we think of prematurity, but that is not always the case. So this is a very important overview. Next, Fabiana Bacchini, who we know very well, and Nadia Leek from UK. They present their story of mothering a surviving twin, which again is something very painful. And what I want to say with this is that each experience is unique and insightful, and we all have to learn. There is to learn from everyone. Nonetheless, I would like to thank Canadian Premature Babies Foundation and Bliss Charity from UK, as well as to other charities around the world for their hard work towards educating and raising awareness about prematurity and NICU world. I would like to wrap up my presentation and leave a space for questions by saying that our story and the book that I wrote are about survival, about the courage to face everything that was given to us, about healing, but most of all about gratitude for all the people that we met along the way, all the professionals, and for their hard work, dedication, and compassion towards our family. In other words, our story is similar to the little bunch of flowers that you see in the picture, which bloom when where no one would give them a chance, but they still bloom. Thank you very much for listening and for your patience. I attached some references here, and you can find me everywhere on social media, and you can get in touch via email if you have any questions or suggestions. Why not? Or feedback. That would be really helpful.
Thank you so much, Maria, for sharing that and for taking the time to read one of your lovely poems. Such a powerful choice, too, to highlight that importance, not only that individually we give names when we choose them, but how important it is to hear those names to be repeated back to us.
Absolutely. Choosing a name for a baby represents such a unique and unforgettable and precious journey. And it is a bit underestimated, not everywhere, but a bit underestimated in the NICU. And I hope that this will encourage the NICU staff to ask and call the baby by their name. I would like to add up that it's helpful to ask even the parents if they would like to be called by their names and not just call them mom and dad. And I know this can be hard sometimes due to so many names to remember. Some of them are very tricky to pronounce, but they could have a sticker with their name until the staff gets used to them.
I know in our NICU, the nurses right away made little nameplates for all the babies. And I know 10 years later they still do, so that you can see the baby's name. And then it's easier on the healthcare staff who might be second guessing themselves trying to remember names. Not everyone is able to remember names very well, but putting the baby's name above them certainly made a big difference. And they were cute little scrapbooky, very colorful. It didn't seem very clinical and hospital, these names. And then, if they couldn't remember my name, well, you can say, oh, Rory's mom, rather than just mom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing today. I don't see any questions or comments right now for you, but hopefully people will get in touch, and we did put a link to your book in the comments there for people to follow up.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Wishing everyone the best.
And thank you all for joining us today and following and listening along. And I'd like to take the opportunity as well to thank AstraZeneca for their ongoing support of the educational programs of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. And we will be back again next week. Preemie Chats happens every Friday here at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Next week, the topic will be kangaroo care. And I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.